Hi, this is Elizabeth Gosian, and here is my final presentation on my online lesson that I created on shapes. A little about myself. This is my third year teaching at Detroit Academy of Arts and Sciences. I got my undergrad from Central Michigan University with a major in language arts and a mild in child development. So I am certified K through 8. Now I do lesson plans for my team of first grade teachers in science and social studies, so that's my forte, but being an elementary school teacher, we do teach all of it. Some hobbies, I like to walk my dog and go to the movies, get dinner with friends, hang out with family, and that's just a little about myself. The reason that I went into looking towards doing something with shapes is we had our NWEA state testing, and when we looked at the scores, they were very low. And looking specifically at geometry, that's where I had students scoring the lowest. They were not knowing standards that were expected in kindergarten. So I really looked at that as something that needed to be addressed, because if they don't have the base knowledge of shapes, we can't move on to first grade standards from that. So here's another higher end analysis look, and this was more along the higher end of my students. Now you can see down at the bottom that there is no students that are in this score range, and I just have one student in this higher level. But with only one student, I know most of my rest of my students then are in the low scoring for geometry. My goal is for 80% of my students to come away knowing attributes about a two-dimensional shape. So I need to start with the basics for students to build and for them to be able to assimilate into these first grade standards that are shown. My design and my map started with what I want the students to come out with. And that was having 80% of students being able to identify attributes about a two-dimensional shape, which thus would show 80% of students having that RIT score of 181 or higher in geometry. So having those set as the outcome, I could go back from there to figure out what objectives I needed and what standards I needed to cover. So identifying, defining attributes about a two-dimensional shape is what I want students to come away with. But there are many other things about that students need to know. So having modeling two-dimensional shapes was something I would do after the fact of this lesson that I have prepared. Something as an extra credit or something as an in-class assignment. But really where it all starts is what they know. So students are coming in knowing the correct name of shapes: square, circle, but it's going beyond that. So identifying shapes that are two-dimensional or three-dimensional. They have to pick and choose, which you'll see in my website as well. So going from there is identifying the different attributes. So knowing what it means to be an open or closed shape and being able to identify then if the shape is open or closed. Same with knowing the sides, what a side is, and being able to identify how many sides the shape has. Same with corners and angles, and if it has parallel sides. Standards that are covered are identifying shapes as two-dimensional or three-dimensional, correctly naming shapes regardless of their orientations or overall sides, distinguishing between defining attributes, so triangles that are closed and three-sided versus non-defining attributes, so the color and overall size, and being able to build or design those shapes, which I showed you in the last one, something that would be an extra activity. So composing those shapes as well, drawing or using marshmallows and toothpicks to build. So the design process that we learned about through our reading has shown throughout my assignment. starting with it just being an online tutorial. It really encompasses all the learning the student needs. It is self-paced and includes the assessment. The assessment as well has a variety of questions. So there's multiple choice questions, there's click all that apply questions, short answer questions. I made sure to do the best I could putting all the information in student language. Now, first graders, there are a wide variety of readers in my classroom, and it's something that the website I chose has an option to upgrade and has an option to add a speech, so the students can play the speaker and I can record what it has read. So that would be an option as well. I tried to make it as simple as I could with easy navigation and included some interactive drill and practice games for students. I originally started making the map as a unit, but really realized later that I needed to narrow it down a lot. So I did make a huge change to my learning map. I knew that without students knowing the basic terminology, they would not be able to move on. So I wanted to start with the basics. So figuring that they knew the names of most two-dimensional shapes, square, circle, triangle, I went on from there to define attributes about the shapes. So there is where my learning map really took a huge change. So I started with a map that included a lot of different difficult standards, but realized I really just needed to break it down and build up to just one big standard. I did run into a lot of obstacles because planning for young technology users is difficult. There's a good amount of reading. However, I possibly, like I said, could upgrade and record the speech, which really would be beneficial. I enjoyed all the resources that I found. Weebly, the website that I used to create, was easy to use, easy to create, and allowed me to build a website that I think is easy for young learners. And the videos I chose to use as a resource had really great songs, and my students really loved singing songs to learn about different things. The games as well seem to be at ability level, age appropriate, and fun for students to use. I went back and forth on how I was going to implement this lesson. I know having a flipped classroom really relies on a lot of students doing their part at home. And unfortunately, I cannot hold my students accountable in first grade for this when I'm not sure what their home environment's entirely like or if the computer or internet access is readily available. So I think that young learners really would not benefit as well from a flipped classroom without the support they need. Just logging on correctly and reading some of the material or help with directions. So, because of this, I ended up sticking with an online lesson. So this lesson can be done at home, but I do like the idea of having students complete it in the computer lab in the classroom or in the school. So this way I can be there if there's any assistance needed, and then from there, depending on the student's knowledge and ability level, I can make adjustments or help where needed. Most likely, I would walk through this site with the students before they log in. I would tell them their objectives and what information they should know after they're finished. And after guiding them through, then I would allow them to use the website themselves. So here now I'm going to take you to my website. So when students log in, they will see let's learn about two-dimensional shapes. Now, as I said, I tried my best to get it as student friendly for reading as I could. And yes, some of these words might be difficult for them, but to be honest, looking at where my students' reading levels are, I think the most difficult word might be dimensional. But going through this, they're going to see what they're going to learn. So this is more or less to identify exactly what they know and the state objectives. This list along the side for students to be able to refer back to. I have buttons located at the bottom of each page for them to navigate through. So here's where they will learn about the different attributes. So sides, they can either continue on here or click here. A closed shape, vertex, angles, parallel lines, and as you can see, I really tried to keep it as short as possible with pictures as well. So after they learn about all of the different attributes, then they're going to then choose what shapes are two-dimensional. If they get to a shape that's two-dimensional, they'll click on it, and here's where they will read facts about it as well as play a video.
It has 4 equal sides. It has 4 right angles and 4 straight lines. A square is a shape. It has 4 equal sides. It has 4 right angles and 4 straight lines. Draw a square in the air. Draw a square in the air. Draw a...
So that's just an idea of one of them. They can come down and see, and click here. When done, it'll take them back to the shapes. So they have choices of all of these that they're going to turn to and learn information about. If they do click on a three-dimensional shape, it just tells them it's a three-dimensional shape. Go back. So after they've found out all of this information, I'm going to have them scroll down, and this is something I would discuss with them in the beginning as we go through the site. They can then click, and in green is where they'll play their games and get their practice. So I have along down here a reference page that I created using some images that I created and from another website, and gives them more information. So my resources as well have been listed on this page, but I really do like this, showing them this and being able to go back, play a game, and then if they forget what something is, they can come back, figure out what a vertex is, then go back to the games and continue playing. So there's a lot of choices. Some of them are matching, some of them are building their own shapes, like the geo board, which seems like a lot of fun, and they'll get a lot of information out of it. Then once they're ready, they will head to their quiz. Now for my evaluation, I sent out quite a few emails to coworkers and friends who are also in the education field, but unfortunately only heard back from 2. But I can show you some of the evaluation information I received. So I gave a few questions, the same 1 to 5 idea, and then some short answer at the end. So the lesson was easily organized and easy to navigate. Interesting, we've got a 4 and 5. Graphics and videos, 100. Videos and tasks aligned with the objectives. Appropriately assessing the objectives. So the assessment they took a look at. A valuable resource to teaching. So some things they liked, the songs and how easy it was to navigate through, and something they would change. So I had trouble with this as well. They had mentioned where you click on the 2D shapes and the 3D shapes. I think a lot of students might just scroll through that and click on whatever they want, when really I do want them to get all of the information. So I thought about having it go one by one and they'd have to navigate through, they couldn't go back, but it seemed to make more sense of having that list on the side where it was more easy to go back and get out of something to find out the information if they were confused on something. So I wanted them to get through everything as easy as possible. So having it available was important to me. So the wording as well for what they're going to learn, like I said, the word dimensional is a very large word, but having that text to speech would be something that I would probably want to include and upgrade from that website. Even with the cost, it just would be very beneficial for the students. So informative, it's a great resource, so I'm glad. This was from my coworker who is also a first grade teacher, and a friend of mine who is actually a middle school math teacher. So I thought it would be unique perspective from her as well. So, although she was not on my list of who I sent it to for my project proposal, when I wasn't getting as much feedback, I decided to send it to her and get her reaction as a math teacher. Going back to my evaluation and using those responses and a reflection from Dr. Durkin as well, I really went back and made quite a few changes, and it's definitely all for the positive. So my learning map had changed, and I figured I needed to narrow it down. The overall objective needed to be narrowed down, and that's something that's very vital. If I give too much in a short amount of time, the students really aren't going to retain the information. We need to build up to one thing at a time. I already made many adjustments to the project, but creating a list of web page choices at the side, that was one thing I changed. Adding a reference page, adding pages about the different attributes, talking about the two-dimensional shapes. So it is something I would like to continue to change. And if I were to upgrade, I could add that audio button so students can click and listen and follow along as well with the reading. So these are all things that I'm going to keep in mind in future lessons I can create, as well as this one that I hope to include in my school year this year. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.